catch on the fastest within Israel. I'm sure that there were brighter and more adept people. But in order to magnify the grace of God, he took that which was weak in order to make it strong.
Okay, we've got to take a break right here. We're going to come back for a response from Dr. Lapide, so please stick with us. All right, we're back. We're talking with Dr. Walter Kaiser, Dean of Trinity Seminary, and Professor of Old Testament and Semitic languages there, as well as Jewish scholar and theologian, Dr. Pinchas Lapide. Gentlemen, we want to continue the conversation, and I'm going to ask both of you, Dr. Lapide, first of all, you to respond to what we were talking about in the first part of the program, but then I want you also to give me more evidence from the Hebrew Scriptures concerning the Messiah, and does it apply to Jesus or not? All right, so let's continue. Dr. Lapide?
Well, to put it bluntly, all the 33 Old Testament prophecies usually mentioned by evangelical people, which prove, so to say, that Jesus was the Messiah, are, to say the least, ambivalent. They are not, God forbid, lies or falsehoods. They could very well point to Jesus, but they could also point to others. There is no one prophecy in the entire Old Testament which indubitably and beyond any shadow of a doubt say this Jesus and no other one is the Messiah of Israel. That's the first point. The second point is that you as an American, Dr. Kaiser, living in this free, blessed country which hasn't known wars, nor torment, nor tyranny in human recollection, you probably have difficulty envisaging the psychological situation of the 12 apostles and Jesus living under the brutal yoke of a Roman Empire which didn't care a damn what happened to them. All they wanted is exact maximum of taxes and keep peace under their terms. Under such conditions, to expect the Messiah only to suffer without getting rid of the Roman yoke, as the expectation had been for several generations before Jesus, is a tall order which only very few Jews, some did, were able to fill. So the suffering Messiah, which has a long history in Jewish thought, beginning from Isaiah 53, half a millennium before Jesus, was prevalent in smaller circles, whilst the reigning and winning Messiah was the hope of the masses, to put it bluntly. But there's a point in Acts 1 when the resurrected appears to his disciples. There's only one single question they put to him. Will you at this very time establish the kingdom for Israel? A question which in its wording is undoubtedly political, certainly royal and kingly, and leaves no space for speculation about anything spiritual or unbodily. And if Jesus answers according to Acts chapter 1, yours is not to know, nor does the Son know, but only the Father in his own sovereignty, when the kingdom will be established, he does not say no to their monarchic political expectation. He only says nobody knows, even I, Jesus, do not know. He doesn't say, you stupid hillbillies, what do you expect? A political kingdom? He doesn't say that. He says clearly, yes, by not gainsaying their political hope, only as to the time. He, Jesus, and that makes him to me an extremely appealing person, I don't know myself, says Jesus, only my Father in heaven does. So their political hopes of a ruling Messiah couldn't have been totally amiss. Jesus must have shared them to some extent.
Yeah, and that's my point. I think we're in total agreement there, and that's where I think the evangelicals are the friends of the Jewish understanding and cause, because I find no difficulty with that explanation. Matter of fact, that's exactly why I said that the community was only concerned about get that Roman eagle out of town and we've got to get out of these galley ships. Why should we be rowing away? Why must we be paying the price of the heavy taxes, carrying the pack to the next mile marker? This is unfair. It's just unconscionable. We've got to get out from under this heavy yoke. And Jesus does not rebuke them and say, that's wrong, you've misunderstood it totally. They have an aspect, but they have missed, I think, a parallel. And that is still the discussion in the Jewish evangelical dialogue to this day. That's precisely the point that's under discussion. It's different than the Jewish Christian dialogue on all other fronts. We shift the basis for it here, because our basis is that there's a priestly aspect to the Messiah as well as the kingly aspect. And it is the priestly part of the dialogue that the evangelical wants to pick up. He died for our sin. There must be a trespass offering, the Asham of Isaiah 53. Who is this servant that comes and gives his life as a trespass offering? And that is not usually discussed in the whole spread. But one other thing, if I can get another thing in here, and that is the whole plurality concept. You've mentioned this several times. And while I recognize that the meaning spread can be very, very wide, yet it seems to me that just as in our conversation, ultimately, if there is to be any kind of communication or common coinage between us, somehow we're going to have to come back to the meaning of the author. If I'm going to understand you properly, I could put 60 different constructions on what you've said, but I won't be fair to you as a human, much less as a person in the theological community, unless I hear you and try to appreciate adequately what you are intending to say. I can't maybe comprehend it in everything, but I should be able to apprehend it and be able to get some close correspondence to what you've said. So I think that's our job with the writers of Scripture. And I don't like the distinction made between Greek thought and Hebrew thought, as if Hebrew thought was just paratactic and you have the vav, and you're just putting truth, and they're out there like a cafeteria. Just because you do not have, as in Greek thought, thesis, and then you have opposed to that in a dialectic out of which comes a synthesis, or some other type of movement where you have a logical construction, does not mean that within the Hebrew thinking they were not after truth, or that they didn't have a singular truth. Matter of fact, that's the distinction drawn between the false prophet and the true prophet. One gets his word from God, Jeremiah in his discussion. The other one is shooting from the hip and is saying what appears to him. And therefore, I do think that we do have something by which we can monitor what is adequate and what is inadequate as far as approximating the understandings, even on the topic of Messiah.
Can I cut in right here? In your book, let me cut to the outline of your book here because we have 2 minutes left here. Just a comment from both of you. In the book, we're talking about Hebrew thought. What I liked about the book was that you took the Hebrew scriptures and you said the Hebrew promises themselves, given starting with in Genesis 3:15, it narrows it down. It's coming to be one who is a man, a he person to the woman. The seed will come. Then it goes to Abraham, to his line, and it keeps narrowing down as you go through Abraham, David, and then things are added on as you get into Isaiah and Zechariah and so on down the line. Okay? So that it seems to me, Dr. Lapide, that if you take this progression, that it doesn't just apply to everybody. As far as I see the Hebrew scriptures, would you agree that the Messiah just can't be anybody that is Jewish?
Certainly not.
Okay.
But he has